Welcome back to Dive Vibe. Today we're going to be taking a look at a potentially fatal diving accident. And this one is serious. These people definitely could have died. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Alright, what's up everybody? My name is Zach. Welcome back to Dive Vibe. I am a technical rebreather instructor and a former Army medic / CLS instructor. And I'm going to be using my expertise to react to a video called Potentially Fatal Scuba Diving Accident Intervention in the Bahamas. And it's a pretty crazy one, if I'm being honest. These two divers, I already watched it through once. We're going to watch it together. These two divers definitely were very, very close to dying. They were really close to diving. They were diving. Okay, so unfortunately, we're at 71 feet. Beginning of the dive. NASA. I love the way pirates say it in the video games in the Assassin's Creed. NASA. But anyway, can't play the sound on this one because it's copyrighted. Sorry. The dive master said on the boat, only advanced divers can dive under 100 feet. Only 3 of us raised our hands. Man, that's a tale as old as time. People not listening on the dive boat? It happens. This wall dive was very steep. A buoyancy control critical. Yeah, that's a pretty steep wall dive. I would say that, that's for sure. Where are we at? We're at 100 feet already. Look at his computer's blinking at him. I really like, it's kind of, I don't know. The diver keeps showing their depth gauge, which adds a lot of context to this video. So I'm pretty thankful for that, although kind of weird to record your vacation dive like that. But yeah, whatever. It's your vacation. Okay, so they're supposed to be at 70 feet. So he said who's advanced earlier in the video. Only 3 people raised their hands. I'm guessing that means that these people are not advanced. So that actually means that the depth limit is really 60 feet. Maybe this boat says something different. This dive operation says 70 feet for non-advanced divers. But it should have been 60. If they're a patty shop, and I'm pretty sure most training agencies are kind of in the same. So this guy's got they're of the same class. So this guy's got about 2,200 psi left. They're at 150 feet, so pretty early in the dive. We've got 2,200 psi left. Now, we've got 1,200 psi, or what is, I'm sorry, 1,700 psi left. So that's fast. It's like 400, 500 psi, like that, real quick. Hasn't been that long. Okay, so his camera is on his wrist now, just floating there. So we're not going to get great angles, but this video is actually not too bad. So there's these divers down there. They're like 100-something feet. They don't know what they're doing. Taking pictures. Man, I hate a camera in the hands of an inexperienced diver. You guys really, like, get like 20 or 30 dives under your belt before you throw a camera in your hand. It makes everything harder. Gave them the check air signal. And they're like, what? Alright, so they're going to come up. And this is the only way to actually know how much air you have. If you're a dive guide, don't be afraid to actually look at someone's air gauge. I look at it all the time. Usually they're hanging down in front of you. I can turn around and see them. Got really good at reading upside down air gauge. So at 150 feet, one of them's got, what did it say, 700 psi. One's got 400 psi. It's a really, really bad spot to be in. They don't have enough time, or they don't have enough air probably to get up 400 psi. That's not much. So now they're up there. This guy's at 0. And the other one has what looks like a little bit of air left. Or it says 0. You notice how he's still breathing off of it? Let's talk about that for a second. So still breathing off the tank. I don't know if you guys know this, but the calibration on an SPG can be slightly off. And depending on how the gauge can read, they can be like not totally perfect. I've seen people completely out of air where it looked like they had about 200 PSI left. And I have seen people still breathing off a tank that has said 0 PSI for about 5 minutes. So you can't necessarily rely on what the gauge says. It's another great reason as a recreational diver to never let your tank get below 500 PSI because it kind of takes care of the margin of error on that gauge. So let's finish her up, see what happens here. There's only a few seconds left. This is your dive partner. It's a 12-year-old. It's a 12-year-old. A 12-year-old should really not be 150 feet. Please dive within your limits. This looks like a one of those come to Jesus videos on late night TV. Except it's about not dying underwater. There's not a certified rescue diver on every recreational dive. I would say all certified rescue divers are also not capable of rescuing you. Some of them are. This guy was. This person absolutely saved the lives of those two divers. There's no question in my mind that they would not be here today, especially the older one, the dad. It looked like 400 psi. I don't think they would have made it if that guy hadn't intervened and brought them directly to the surface. They probably should have been dealt with earlier. It said the dive guide wasn't watching them. Oh man, that will look bad in court, because what are you supposed to do? Look back in your dive master manual and find out. You better don't take your eyes off new divers. Also, taking a mixed group of advanced divers and basic open water divers, not really the best idea if you can avoid it, because how are you going to police all of them? It's like, okay, you two can go to 100 feet. I mean, it's a wall dive, and then you guys can only stay at 60 feet. How do you police that? That means there's a 40-foot difference between these people. So what are you going to do? Be at 80 feet in the middle, so you're only 20 feet away from them and 20 feet away from them? That's not good. That doesn't work. You have to be much closer. You can't. You can't be that far away from your whole dive group. What happens if you have to help somebody and then something happens to the other people? Now you're 40 feet away from them? What are you gonna do? How do you defend that in court? Whenever you're coming up with a procedure as a dive master and instructor, you need to think about it. How am I going to defend myself if I'm called to the witness stand? What are you gonna do? You're not gonna defend yourself, not very well at least, not with actions and procedures like that. It's not gonna happen. So let's talk about what went well and what went bad. I've kind of already touched on this, but okay. So what went well? Let's go with what went bad first. What went bad first? Because there's a lot that went bad. These divers, you do need to take responsibility for your own life and make sure that if you're diving, that you're properly trained to do this dive. These divers, I guess they're certified, but they certainly didn't behave like it. They don't behave like my divers when they come out of the course. So I guess they're certified. Who knows? That was bad. The dive guide not seeing that divers that they probably knew, they must have known, because you didn't want to see the certification card of everybody you go diving with, right? If you're a pro, must have known that they're not advanced, and they should have seen that. There's just no excuse at all for that. That's it. You're a professional. You're supposed to be acting like a professional. And professionals don't just swim and ignore the people behind them. Okay, I'm gonna stop because I'm getting upset. Okay, so what else? I'm not even gonna talk. You guys know what went wrong. So what went well? Well, at least one person was paying attention. It seemed like a non-professional. He said he's a rescue diver. I'm not gonna ask that anymore. It's a good idea, if you're a pro, sometimes to not let everybody know that you're a pro, especially if there's a dive accident, because sometimes when the litigation starts, they're like, oh, there were other professionals on the boat. So when I travel, I tend to keep it to myself that I'm an instructor, because I don't need that. I'm on vacation, man. I'm not working. But this guy was watching. He could have been a professional, but he's at least a rescue diver. At least he says he is. And he was paying attention and rescued these guys from 150 feet. Didn't have to do much other than in his own dive, when he still had well over half a tank left, bring them directly to the surface. It looked like it was probably a drift dive, so he probably had to pop a sausage at the surface, a safety sausage, DSB, to get picked up. So that makes it extra fun getting to float out there separate from the group. Great. Thanks for ruining my dive. But thankfully, he was there, because if he wasn't, they would be dead. They'd be yet another statistic. They'd be yet another anecdote that's taught in instructor and dive master courses to make sure that stuff like this doesn't happen. So thankfully, we can learn from it now without anybody having died. So, what's the takeaway? Watch your air and dive within your limits. Watch your air and dive within your limits. And I'll say it one more time. Watch your air and dive within your limits. That's good life advice. Always dive within your limits. Okay. I'll stop harping on this. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Please, spread the good word about diving safely. And we can make a difference. We can stop diving fatalities, because most of the time they're needless. And as a former Army medic, it just pisses me off, because I worked so hard to make sure that people don't die, and then people go out and negligently murder themselves. So, if you learned something from the video, because you probably didn't like it, go ahead and hit that like button so YouTube recommends it to other people. Subscribe so you can see more of this stuff. Hit the notification icon. Leave a comment and let me know that you're just as pissed about all this stupidness as I am. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can do that on Patreon. Buy me a beer. There's extra videos, link in the description, or you can get one of my t-shirts. All that stuff's in the description. Thanks so much for diving with me today, and I'll see you in the water.
Hey.